A judge walked past a black janitor mopping the courthouse floor and said, "Make sure you clean properly. People like you need to remember your place." The janitor, wearing his simple uniform, just nodded quietly and kept working. What that judge didn't know? The man mopping the floor was Thomas Grant, a real estate billionaire worth $4.2 billion. And he wasn't there to clean. He was there because he had just purchased the entire courthouse building. In 20 minutes, that judge would be called into a meeting where she'd learn that the janitor she mocked now controlled her workplace. This story will show you why you should never judge someone by their job or appearance. Because sometimes, the person you're looking down on might be the one who decides your future. Before we dive into this incredible story of justice and karma, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss more true stories where arrogance meets its match. Now let's see what happened when this judge learned the truth. Who is Thomas Grant? Thomas Grant was 58 years old. He grew up in poverty in Detroit. His mother worked as a maid and his father was a janitor at a hospital. Thomas remembered watching his father come home exhausted every night, his hands rough from cleaning chemicals, but his spirit never broken. Thomas's father always told him, "Son, there's no shame in honest work. What matters is how you treat people, not what job you have." Thomas took those words to heart. He studied hard, got scholarships, and eventually started a real estate company at age 25. 40 years later, his company owned over 200 buildings across America, office towers, shopping centers, and yes, courthouses. Despite his wealth, Thomas never forgot where he came from. He still remembered what it felt like to be invisible, to be treated like he didn't matter because of his job or his skin color. So once a year, Thomas would do something unusual. He would dress as a worker, a janitor, a delivery man, or a construction worker, and visit his properties to see how his employees treated ordinary people. The judge, Patricia Monroe, was 52 years old. She'd been a judge for 15 years. She came from a wealthy family, went to the best schools, and had never struggled for money a day in her life. Patricia was known for being tough in her courtroom, but behind closed doors she was known for something else, her treatment of courthouse staff. Security guards complained that she never said thank you. Clerks whispered about how she snapped at them over small mistakes. And the cleaning staff, she treated them like they were invisible, or worse, like they were beneath her. Patricia believed that success meant you were better than others. She looked down on anyone who worked in service jobs. In her mind, if you were mopping floors or serving coffee, you had failed at life. Why this day mattered, the state had decided to sell the courthouse building to a private company to save money. The government would still operate the court, but a private owner would manage the building. Thomas's company had won the bid 3 weeks ago, paying $47 million for the property. The sale was being kept quiet until it was finalized. Only a few top officials knew. Judge Monroe didn't know. Most staff didn't know. But Thomas wanted to see his new building and meet the people who worked there, before anyone knew who he was. So on this Tuesday morning, Thomas, dressed in a simple janitor's uniform, grabbed a mop and bucket and walked into the courthouse. He wanted to see the real culture of the place, and he was about to get a very clear picture. Thomas entered the courthouse at 8:30 a.m. He carried his mop and bucket, nodding politely to the security guards at the entrance. They nodded back and waved him through. So far, so good. He started mopping the main hallway on the 3rd floor where several courtrooms were located. The real janitors knew him. Thomas always checked with his building managers first and got permission. They thought it was a bit strange, but they respected him for caring enough to see things from their perspective. Thomas was mopping near courtroom 3 billion when Judge Patricia Monroe came walking down the hall. She was wearing an expensive suit and carrying a designer briefcase. Her high heels clicked loudly on the floor. Thomas was mopping the area near her courtroom door. He moved his bucket aside to let her pass. Patricia stopped. She looked at the floor, then at Thomas with obvious disgust. "You missed a spot," she said, pointing with her expensive shoe. "Right there." Thomas looked where she pointed. The floor was clean. "Ma'am, I just mopped there." "It's clean." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Are you arguing with me? I said there's a spot. Clean it again." Thomas stayed calm. "Yes, ma'am." He mopped the area again, even though it didn't need it. Patricia watched him, then said, "You know, when I was coming up, I worked hard to make something of myself. People like you need to do the same instead of complaining about your situations." Thomas straightened up. "I'm not complaining, ma'am. I'm just doing my job." "Good," Patricia said coldly. "Remember your place. This courthouse runs on order. Judges make decisions. You clean floors. That's how it works." She walked into her courtroom without another word, leaving Thomas standing in the hallway. A young clerk named Maria had witnessed the whole thing. She walked over to Thomas. "I'm so sorry. She treats everyone like that. We've tried to report her, but nothing ever happens." Thomas smiled gently. "It's okay. I've been treated worse, but thank you for your kindness." An hour later, Thomas was mopping near the break room. Judge Monroe came in to get coffee. Thomas was emptying the trash can nearby. Patricia made her coffee, then turned to leave. As she walked past Thomas, she deliberately splashed some coffee on the floor. "Oops," she said without any real apology in her voice. "Looks like you have more work to do." Thomas looked at the spilled coffee, then at her. "No problem, ma'am. I'll clean it up." "You certainly will," Patricia said. "That's what you're here for, isn't it? To clean up after your betters?" Another judge, an older black man named Judge Williams, was in the break room. He stood up. "Patricia, that's uncalled for." Patricia turned to him. "Oh, please, Harold, don't be so sensitive. I'm just being realistic. Some people are meant to lead and some are meant to follow. That's just how the world works." Judge Williams shook his head. "That's not how the world should work." "Well, Harold, maybe that's why you're still in family court while I handle major criminal cases," Patricia said smugly. She walked out. Judge Williams approached Thomas. "I apologize for her behavior. She doesn't speak for all of us." "I appreciate that, sir," Thomas said. "But I've learned that people like her eventually reveal their true character, and it usually catches up with them." At 11 a.m., there was a courthouse staff meeting in the main conference room. All judges and senior staff were required to attend. The building administrator was going to announce something important. Thomas, still in his janitor uniform, was mopping the hallway outside the conference room. The door was slightly open. He could hear everything. Judge Monroe arrived and saw Thomas. She shook her head in disgust. "You're always around, aren't you?" she said. "Like you're part of the furniture." "Just doing my job, ma'am," Thomas replied quietly. Patricia leaned closer and lowered her voice, but not enough that Thomas couldn't hear. "Let me give you some life advice. You're what, 50, 60, and you're still mopping floors. That should tell you something about your life choices. If you had worked harder, studied more, maybe you'd be in that conference room instead of cleaning outside it." She paused for effect. "But you didn't, so here you are, a janitor. And that's all you'll ever be." With that, Patricia walked into the conference room, leaving Thomas in the hallway. Thomas took a deep breath. He'd seen enough. It was time. He pulled out his cell phone and called his building manager. "David, it's Thomas. I'm at the courthouse. Please come to the main conference room. Bring the ownership transfer documents. It's time for the announcement." Inside the conference room, the courthouse administrator, Michael Chen, stood at the front. All the judges and senior staff were seated, including Patricia Monroe, who sat in the front row with her arms crossed. "Thank you all for coming," Michael began. "As you know, the state has sold this courthouse building to a private real estate company. The court will continue operating here, but we now have a new landlord." Patricia rolled her eyes. "Great! Some corporation that will probably raise rents and cut corners on maintenance." Michael continued. "The new owner has a reputation for treating employees well and maintaining properties excellently. In fact, he's here today. I'd like to introduce." The conference room door opened. David, the building manager, walked in carrying a briefcase. Behind him walked Thomas Grant, still wearing his janitor uniform. Patricia barely glanced at them, assuming David was the owner and Thomas was just there to clean. Michael looked confused. "David, where is Mr. Grant?" David smiled. "He's right here." He gestured to Thomas. The room fell silent. Thomas walked to the front, standing next to Michael. He was still holding his mop. "Good morning," Thomas said in a clear, confident voice. "My name is Thomas Grant. I am the CEO of Grant Properties, and as of last Friday, I am the new owner of this courthouse building." Patricia's mouth fell open. Several judges gasped. Judge Williams, who had defended Thomas earlier, started smiling. Thomas continued. "For the past 3 hours, I've been walking through this building disguised as a janitor. I do this with all my properties because I believe you learn a lot about a place by seeing how people treat those they think can't affect their lives." He let that sink in. "Most of the staff here have been wonderful," Thomas said. "Security guards were respectful, clerks were kind, many judges said hello or thank you. It's a good workplace with good people." He paused and his voice grew serious. "But not everyone." Patricia's face had gone pale. She knew what was coming. "One judge in particular," Thomas continued, not looking at Patricia directly, "told me to remember my place. She said I should have worked harder in life instead of complaining. She spilled coffee deliberately for me to clean, and she told me I was just a janitor and that's all I'd ever be." The room was completely silent. Everyone was looking at Patricia now. Her face had turned red. Thomas finally looked directly at her. Judge Monroe, I grew up watching my father work as a janitor. He was the hardest working man I ever knew. He taught me that there is no shame in honest work and that how you treat people, especially those who can't do anything for you, shows your true character. Patricia tried to speak. Mr. Grant, I didn't know. That's exactly the point, Thomas interrupted gently but firmly. You didn't know who I was, so you treated me the way you really feel about people in service jobs. You revealed your true character. Judge Williams spoke up. Mr. Grant, I want you to know that Judge Monroe's attitudes don't represent most of us. I know that, Judge Williams, Thomas said warmly. And I appreciate how you stood up for me in the break room. That showed character. He turned back to Patricia. Judge Monroe, I want to be clear. I'm not going to demand that you be removed as a judge. That's not my place, and your legal qualifications aren't my concern. However, this is my building now, and I have some conditions. Patricia looked like she wanted to disappear. First, you will write a formal apology to every janitor, security guard, and clerk in this courthouse. Second, you will complete 40 hours of community service working alongside custodial staff at a homeless shelter, so you understand what their jobs actually require. Third, you will attend sensitivity and respect training. He paused. If you refuse any of these conditions, I will file a formal complaint with the Judicial Ethics Board, including testimony from multiple witnesses about your behavior. The choice is yours. Patricia's voice was barely a whisper. I'll do it, all of it. The meeting ended in stunned silence. As people left, many judges came up to Thomas to introduce themselves properly and welcome him. Judge Williams shook his hand warmly. That took courage, Williams said, both to do that test and to handle it with such grace. It's not courage, Thomas replied. It's just remembering where I came from and who raised me. Patricia Monroe left the conference room with her head down. Over the next week, she fulfilled every one of Thomas's requirements. She wrote apologies to all 23 custodial and support staff members. She spent 40 hours working at a homeless shelter, where she learned that cleaning was exhausting, difficult work that deserved respect. The staff at the courthouse noticed a change in Patricia. She started saying please and thank you. She stopped treating people like they were invisible. Whether it was real change or just fear of consequences, no one knew for sure. But the behavior improved. Thomas didn't just own the building, he transformed the culture. His first act as owner was to give every custodial, security, and clerical staff member a 15% raise. His second act was to create an employee respect policy with clear consequences for anyone, including judges, who mistreated staff. He installed a comment box where staff could anonymously report disrespectful treatment. He hired an independent mediator to review complaints, and he made it clear, in his building, everyone would be treated with dignity. The courthouse administrator, Michael Chen, told a local newspaper, In 15 years working here, I've never seen morale improve so quickly. Mr. Grant's changes have made this a better place to work. One custodian, an older man named James, said in an interview, Mr. Grant came to me personally and apologized that I had to witness Judge Monroe's behavior. Can you imagine? A billionaire apologizing to me. That's respect. Thomas's story spread across the country. News outlets covered it as an example of undercover bosses, but it was more than that. It became a story about respect, dignity, and the danger of judging people by their jobs. Thomas gave one interview to a national magazine. The reporter asked why he did these undercover tests. Because my father taught me that character is revealed in how you treat people who can't do anything for you, Thomas explained. Judge Monroe treated me badly because she thought I was just a janitor who couldn't affect her life. She was wrong, but that's not really the point. What is the point? The reporter asked. The point is she shouldn't have treated me that way even if I really was just a janitor, Thomas said. Janitors, waiters, cashiers, delivery drivers, they all deserve respect. Not because they might secretly be billionaires, but because they're human beings doing honest work. The interview went viral. Schools used it to teach lessons about respect and character. Churches shared it in sermons about humility. The story resonated because everyone could relate, either to being treated badly because of their job or to witnessing it happen to others. 6 months after the incident, Patricia Monroe requested a private meeting with Thomas. He agreed. Mr. Grant, she began, her voice humble in a way it never had been before, I owe you a real apology. Not because you required it, but because I was genuinely wrong. Thomas listened. Working at that homeless shelter changed me. Patricia continued. I met people with master's degrees working as janitors because life had knocked them down. I met veterans who cleaned bathrooms after serving their country. I realized I'd spent my whole life looking down on people who were often stronger and braver than me. She paused. I can't undo what I said to you or how I treated others, but I want you to know I'm trying to be better every day. Thomas nodded. That's all any of us can do, Judge Monroe. Learn and grow. Your father was a businessman, right? Mine was a janitor. But at the end of the day, we're both just people trying to do right by others. Success isn't about what job you have. It's about how you treat people along the way. Today, Thomas Grant still visits his properties in disguise once a year. The courthouse remains one of his favorite buildings because of how the culture changed. Judge Monroe never returned to her old ways. Whether from fear or genuine growth, the result was the same. The story teaches us something essential. Never judge people by their job, their clothes, or their position in life. That janitor might be a billionaire. That waitress might be studying for her PhD. That delivery driver might be a veteran who served your country. But even if they're not, even if they're just a janitor or just a waitress, they deserve your respect. Because character isn't measured by your job title. It's measured by how you treat people who can't do anything for you. As Thomas's father used to say, there's no shame in honest work. The only shame is in treating honest workers with disrespect. If this story moved you or taught you something valuable, smash that like button and subscribe to our channel right now. We bring you real stories about respect, karma, and justice. Drop a comment and tell us, have you ever been judged unfairly because of your job? How did you handle it? Hit that notification bell so you never miss when someone learns that respect matters more than titles. Thanks for watching, and remember, treat everyone with dignity, because you never know who you're really talking to. See you in the next story.